One of my biggest pet peeves that I've always had has been trying to show somebody something or watch something with them, a reel, a show, a movie, you name it. And all they do is be on their phones saying they're busy. Busy with this, busy with that, and that's totally understandable, no shame, if not for the fact that they swear they're paying attention to all three. You, their work, and the screen in front of them. Or take things from another perspective. Maybe you're the average NeoCity student and you have your favorite TV show propped up in the background. Maybe the newest episode of One Piece just came out and you're dying to see it, but you know you also have to get your homework done. And you're trying to get both of them done at the same time. But you know just as well as I do that which one's really got you hooked. Maybe you tune in on the really epic fight scenes, but dial it down on the more boring, repetitive scenes. Or if not, you're at your desk typing away, responding to emails, sending text messages, or doing Zoom meetings all the time, all while trying to complete a critical work project. You feel proud of yourself for how much you're handling all at once. But at the end of the day, your work is subpar at best. You feel exhausted and you hardly remember what was even happening during the meeting. Sound familiar? In our hyper-connected world today, people wear multitasking like a badge of honor. They pride themselves in saying that they can multitask and juggle multiple responsibilities at the same time. But what does this lead to? Multitasking, in fact, is often really difficult to get a grasp on. And this leads us to have many errors in it. Students brag about getting to watch Netflix shows and texting their friends, all while doing their work. But this seems like a compromise many people have with their own work. As long as they're getting their homework done, eventually, they can do a little thing on the side. It's like a forgivable reward. But what does this cost? What if I told you that multitasking is actually a myth? What if I told you that instead of making us more productive, it's actually making us less, decreasing our efficiency, our productivity, and even harming our brains? Today, I'm going to debunk the myth of multitasking, drawing from neuroscience, psychology, and real-world studies to show you why multitasking is actually bad for us. And furthermore, showing you techniques on how we can all better improve and reclaim our focus and efficiency. So, to first understand how something works, we first have to define it, or doesn't work in this case. So multitasking seems simple, handling multiple things at the same time, right? What could go wrong? But what's actually happening inside of our brains? Cognitive scientists define multitasking as context switching, or in other words, task switching. So what is this? When we multitask, we are actually rapidly shifting our focus between tasks. So what does this cause? We're not actually focusing on the same things. So Kim McGrath, a writer at Wake Forest News, describes true simultaneous multitasking to be unlikely. They go on to mention another professor, psychology professor Anthony Salih, whose research in analyzing cognitive flexibility has discovered that we have a high cognitive toll when we multitask. But what is a high cognitive toll? What is that? That can simply be defined as the energy it takes people and our brains to switch between a task. This cognitive cost leads us to have a lower performance, lower efficiency, and overall can harm our brains in the long run. As cliche as it may be to hear that multitasking harms our brains and we should take things one thing at a time, in reality, it's not discussed in media as much as it should be. When we multitask, we switch between tasks and we perform them inefficiently. And on top of that, we're performing multiple automatic and/or controlled tasks at the same time. So drawing in on my last point there, we have a high cognitive toll when we multitask. Professionals like Adam Gasley, a director at Neuroscience and Imaging Center at the University of California, found that when we multitask, we are actually not doing it, we are not actually engaging in multiple goals correctly. When we multitask, it's actually an attempt to engage in more than one goal at the same time. But notice that keyword attempt there? That comes from the fact that as multitasking, as praised as it may be, is actually not a solution to engaging in multiple goals. He contrasts this by saying that with further research, we can come to develop techniques that with adaptive practices and repetition, that we can actually learn to build our multitasking skills. But however, I would contrast this by stating that multitasking is often a matter of perspective. It depends on the type of task we do and the type of skills that we're performing. That multitasking can either be a negative or a benefit, like Gasly states. So if that's the case, then what type of tasks should we perform when we're multitasking? There are two main types of multitasking processes that we should look out for, two cognitive processes. One is cognitive controlled processing, and the second is automatic processing. Undergrad in psychology at the Harvard University, Fujiya-san, can help us determine what automatic processing is. They are the tasks that are simple, natural to us, and most importantly, can even happen outside of our own consciousness. It could be as simple as walking or even breathing. But what about the other side? Cognitive controlled processing is, as defined by Coursera, an educational organization, intricate, detailed, and most importantly, happens within our consciousness. That means we're focusing on it. That means we actually have to try to do it. We're actively performing it. And by this point, I'm sure everybody here knows the simplicity it is to walk and talk or eat and watch a movie. And that's because that's the combination of one automatic task combined with another controlled task. And in this sense, it quite frankly works. I mentioned Casey Smelacker. He helped us determine that we have a lag in our brains. When we have a lag in our brains kind of act like a computer, in which when we have lots of programs running on our computer, that slows down. When we have lots of tabs, it takes longer to load. And when we switch between tabs, we have a lag. And he goes on to further note that we can only perform one automatic task and one controlled task at the same time. As soon as we have another complex cognitive controlled task added into our brains, that's when things go haywire. That's when we struggle to keep up. Now, but I mentioned before that there are some ways that multitasking does work though. So there's gotta be some positives around it, right? And a great example could be made by different studying techniques. When most students go to home and try to do their homework, they feel exhausted, tired, they don't really want to do it, they can hardly keep their focus, or maybe you're in the office and you're on an important work meeting and you just hear a blabber on the other side. You can hardly focus on what they're talking about. And so you grab a piece of paper and a pen and you try to scribble on it. You write initials, you write a signature, or anything else you want. Harvard Medical School has shown that people who study while doodling can actually help them hone in on a specific task that they're trying to perform. Another study by Jackie Andretti found that people who multitask while doodling, in which she found that she took 40 participants, had half of them doodle and the other half not, while they were listening to a dull voice message. She found that the half that did doodle, they actually were able to retain 29% more information than the half that did not. So this just goes to show one of the many ways that when we actually understand how our brains work, that we can actually use the skills that we learn to our benefit, including multitasking. Unfortunately, there are many ways that people still don't quite understand the gist of multitasking and how it works, and they still believe that it works on all levels. So what are the main reasons that people believe in multitasking? One, people believe in multitasking because of the busy illusion. We often equate busyness with productivity. This is because the more the stuff we're doing, the more productive we feel, the more things we feel that we're doing, and I have for a long time shared this sentiment. It's a common way to trick our minds into believing that multitasking can actually be a means to be successful. Two, the dopamine trap. When we multitask and we switch between a new task, we actually get a small hit of dopamine, the brain's pleasure chemical, and that keeps us coming back for more. Professor Gloria Mark at UC Irvine found that people who multitask actually were not able to keep up with their work. When an office worker got interrupted for every 3 minutes, it took them 23 minutes just to get back on track. 23 minutes, that's a long time, and a lot of productivity lost too. Three, the myth of multitaskers. I'm sure everybody here at one point has met somebody that claims they're an excellent multitasker. And I have myself too. My older brother claims that he's one of them. But that's Actually, not that true. If we're thinking about it, only 2.5% of the population is actually capable of being a real multitasker, according to Cleveland Clinic. And unless he's part of this population, which he might be, he's not. And I wish I was part of that percentage, but it's really unlikely. And research actually disproves the case of there being so many multitaskers. So it forces us to look into the work that we're actually producing and which we're saying we're actually good multitaskers or not. Now, I cited a lot of ways that multitasking is negative towards us overall, but what about our brains? What specific effects does it have on our brains? Multitasking lowers our IQs. A research study found that, by University of London, found that we suffer a 15-point IQ drop when we multitask. And crazy enough, that's equivalent to staying up all night or even smoking marijuana. When we multitask, we also suffer a loss of productivity by up to 40%. The American Psychological Association confirms this percentage. That means what might take us 60 minutes to accomplish will actually take us 90. And 40%, that's such a big number to consider. That's almost half of our productivity being lost, and in turn, time wasted. Multitasking increases our errors. When we multitask, we suffer from having more errors in our work because we're constantly shifting our focus between things. Studies in workplace settings show that employees who multitask show significantly more errors in their work. And this is especially dangerous to consider in high-risk professions. It's like aviation, medicine, and even driving your car. We use our cars to go everywhere we need to nowadays. And they're essential to our lives. And as Floridians, we've seen our fair share of car crashes every morning. So it's important to understand that awareness plays a key role in keeping our minds and bodies safe from the effects of multitasking. Multitasking hurts memory and learning. A 2010 Stanford study that showed that people who multitasked with a digital device suffered from filtering out important information, retaining important details, and applying knowledge in new contexts. And I can personally attest to this as a big multitasker beforehand and even now to today. When I multitask, I suffered a lot from doing all of these things. And when this led to me leading with a lot of stress and anxiety, and even when I had my mind all over the place and trying to get a whole bunch of things done at the same time, this led to my work being like subpar. And it made me struggle with even doing one assignment. How to reclaim focus and efficiency. There are ways that we can do this, all collectively, as we're all big multitaskers a lot of times. We can practice time blocking. A great technique is the Pomodoro technique, in which people who take long periods of time of study combined with shorter breaks. So you could take a 25 to 50-minute break alongside 5 to 10 minutes of shorter breaks. And then while you're focused on your work, you can silence all your notifications on your phones and take that time to later on take a break with your digital distractions. Basically, if you really want to watch that one episode, just get it done with, and don't try to combine it with your own work. Train your focus with deep work. A great book I came across is by Cal Newport's Deep Work, in which he argues that the most successful people in any field are the people that can stay focused for long periods of time, instead of getting distracted with the world around them. These people have faster learning, higher quality output, and better problem-solving skills overall. Reduce digital distractions. We can put our digital distractions away, any devices that we're not using, put them away, silence our notifications, and set app time limits on apps that we find particularly distracting. This will help us be more in touch with our work that we're doing in the current moment. Prioritize one thing at a time. Another book I came across is Gary Keller's The One Thing, in which they emphasize that doing one thing at a time is essential to our success. By focusing on one task at a time, we unlock that path to actually succeeding. So you can ask yourself daily, what is one thing I can do that will make everything else easier for myself? And by shifting our minds away from doing more to doing better, we actually can unlock that greater efficiency, creativity, and mental clarity. And so, The world is constantly demanding a lot of our attention. Multitasking promises productivity, but in turn, it's actually taking it away from us. It's making us less efficient and taking away our creativity, as well as harming our brains. By embracing single tasking, focus-driven habits, and deep work, we can actually not just work better, but we can live better. Therefore, I challenge you today. For the next week, resist the urge to multitask, and I promise you and your brain will thank you. Because finding true success is not about doing more, it's about doing everything that you can in the current moment and doing it right, one step at a time, helping us lead happier and healthier lives. Thank you.